Hello, welcome to my build. I'm going to build a new system with a small case based on a mini ITX motherboard. First of all, excuse me for my bit poor English. My native language is Dutch or Nederlands. So now we are in Holland. But I think most of my viewers do understand English. So at least understand English better than Dutch. So I'm going to do this explanation in English. Okay, what you see here are the components which I have chosen for my build. My aim is to build a small server system using CentOS Linux. Important for me is that it should fit in my server rack, so it should be small. And it should be a reliable system, so I've chosen quite some overranged high quality components. The case which I've chosen is a Fractal design Note 304 mini ITX computer case. I will show you that later in this presentation, show you a bit more of it. Then the motherboard is a ASUS PHZ77i DELUXE motherboard. That's this one. It's a nice motherboard, mini ITX, so extremely small. I think it should fit my purpose of building a quite powerful mini server. What can I tell about it? It has two memory slots, 4 SATA 600, SATA 300 ports, one PCI Express slot, but I'm not going to use that. Usually you put in your video card, but as I'm using it as I will be using it as a server, I will use the onboard video card, which has a DVI output. Many extensions: USB 2, USB 3. Ethernet gigabit port, and a sound output and Wi-Fi output. I think that's for the aerials. Okay, so later on we'll try to fit this small nice cute motherboard. Then for the cooling, I've chosen for the cooling of the processor. I've chosen for Noctua NHC12P, and it's a very nice high-tech cooler, as you can see it. And on top of this cooler, a nice van fits. Should fit something like this later on. Yeah, and for the processor, I've chosen for a Core i7, as my purpose is to build a server, use the system as a server. I think it's a very good idea to have a processor with 4 quad cores and 8 threads, so it can do quite some parallel tasking. Let me see. For the memory, I've chosen this one, Corsair Avengers. Important for this build, as I will not have much space using the cooler on the motherboard. Very important is to use low profile memories. So you can see here that it says functions and then LP, and LP stands for low profile. 2 times 4 gigabit to start with. Perhaps later I will expand it to 2 times 8 is 16, which is the maximum amount that this motherboard can hold. Then the power supply. It's again a Corsair TX650, non-modular, meaning that it has a quite big cable bunch coming out of it. Yeah. Usually I use modular power supplies, meaning that they have rails in which you can plug in your cables, but in this case I will not have enough space in the case, to use the modular power supplies, because then you need quite some space here to plug in the cable and then bend it. And this bunch should go like this quite easily. Also, it's very nice that that the bundles are, the cables are covered with a black cable, big cable, which will keep the inside of the case quite tidy, and it will also have a positive influence on the cooling flow. Okay. So this, oh, I almost forgot one. I'm using also a Samsung SSD. This small thing. Yeah. It's 128 gigabytes, big enough for my Linux server, with SATA 600, and important, 5 years of guarantee and very high level of EOS calls it can do and write, it can read and write. So it should do quite well for my mini server, as long as I don't use it very heavily. Again, 5 years of warranty on this SSD, very nice. Also 5 years warranty on my power supply. I think 6 years warranty on the cooler, and 3 years warranty on the ASUS motherboard, and let me think. Oh yeah, and lifetime warranty on the Corsair memory modules. So you can see I've chosen for quality components, just to make sure that the server will be running quite well for a number of years. This is the case which I'm going to use, Fractal Node 304. Let me just slide it open. Okay, there it is, a mini ITX case, and it has this removable brackets in which you can fit hard disks. So you can see you can fit quite a number of hard disks in this case. Let me just get this off. By the way, it was a bit of a headache. When I got this case, the brackets were screwed in the factory, and I had quite some problems getting the small screws loose. They are a bit tiny and a bit fragile, so that gave some headache, but after some struggle in finding the right fitting tool, right fitting screwdriver, I managed to get these small screws out. Okay, so this is the case. You can see a large big fan and two small ones at the front. Okay, so here basically the motherboard will go in. This is the place for the power supply, and then some room for the hard disks, and an extension cord to plug in the power supply. Okay, so the first thing which we will have to do is fit in the motherboard. That's this one. It will go in like this, and to fit this motherboard we will use some screws and some extensions. These are the small extensions that you have to screw in first, and they go in at the four corners, and then on top of that you can let the motherboard rest. Already I see a problem. The last one will, the back one will go in here. I don't know if you can see it. Let me just turn the case a bit. It will go in over here, and this van will be a bit blocking for my screwdriver to really nicely screw this one in. So I think I have to first remove this this fan. Okay, so I've removed the big fan at the back. So now I have more space to fit in this small holder into this little hole. Okay, let me just try to get it a little bit in with my hands. Hope it stays up. Okay, I'm using an electric screwdriver with a nice tool that fits perfectly around the holder. Okay, so let's make sure that we turn the right way. No, that's not correct. Yeah, that's correct. Okay, now let's hope that it stays up and goes easily inside. Yeah, there it goes. Okay, that should do the trick. I noticed that it's very easy to damage the threads of the case, so it's important to have the screwdriver set at the lowest possible torque, in this case 1. Okay, so let me do the other 3, and then we can continue with the motherboard. Okay, the next step is to insert the processor, Core i7. There it is, and the processor will go in here. Be careful, you're not allowed to touch the bottom, all these pins with your fingers. It should be completely clean. Okay, so first let me open the bracket, the socket holder. Okay, there it goes. Sesame opens it. Okay, so now I can insert the processor in the bracket. Please note that, let me show you closely. Okay, there's a small hole here, okay. And you can use this hole as how do you call it, an aid to see how the processor fits into the bracket. In the bracket there is a small pin here, yeah, and it slides into this hole. So let's put it in. Okay, there it goes. It fits nicely into the socket. Okay, so the next step is to close the bracket. Okay, and there's a screw here, and the bracket slides on the lower side of the screw. Okay, so when it slides in, you can close it again. Okay, and then you should remove this small plastic thing. It says that you should first insert the processor and then remove this plastic thing. So the next one is the processor cooler. Okay, just make sure that the plastic is still on it, that I don't put any grease from my hands on the plate. Okay, so now we have to decide how to put the cooler in which direction. We have 4 choices. Okay, so what I do know is that on this side here there is this big cooler which we removed before. So that sits on this side in the case. So I don't have much space on that side. So I cannot do this way, I cannot do this way or that way. That won't fit. So my choices are limited to either going for this direction or for going to that direction. Okay. So I think the best way to move on is to go for this direction, as I have a PCI slot on this side, and by fitting the cooler in this way I will have the most room for this bracket. for this slot, excuse me, in case in the future I want to put a video card in it, then I would not have to worry about this cooler, that it had been fitted in the wrong way. Okay, so we'll fit it in this way. Okay. The first thing we have to do is to fit this X bracket to the motherboard, and it fits on the bottom side of the laptop, of the motherboard, excuse me. Okay, so let me turn the motherboard around. Yeah. I can see, let me just put it this way so you can see it a bit better. Okay, I can see 4 holes, and let's just slide this one through these 4 holes. Just make sure that we don't scratch anything important on the motherboard, otherwise we'll be sorry. Okay, well, that goes in quite nice and easy. Okay, let me turn the motherboard around. Okay, yep, that goes. Now you can see the 4 screws sticking out. Okay, so now we have to insert a number of spacers. Okay, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And the next are these 2 brackets, and now we have to be careful, because the way we can screw in this brackets depends on the orientation we have chosen for our cooler. Okay, let me just rethink this one. If I'm correct, then this was the orientation we had chosen. Yeah, so just enough space for the blower. I might get into trouble with the top blower on top of the cooler, but we'll deal with that later. So that means that this is my orientation. Yeah. So the brackets should go that way. Okay. So this one should go here, and the other one should go on the other side, facing outwards. Okay, so this should be the correct way to fit it, and the cooler should screw onto these 2 screws. They fit. Let me see if you can see it. Okay, they fit in here and in here. So that should fit nicely. Okay. The next thing to do is to screw these brackets, tighten them with the screws. 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay. And the next thing to do is to put some cooling paste on the processor, on the bracket, on the cooler, and just screw all the stuff together. My next step is to fix the big cooling block onto the processor and the brackets. And what I've done is I've already smeared some cool paste on the processor. You might be able to see, and with a 90-degree angle on the cooler, so it's, how do you call it, orthogonal to the base direction on the processor. Okay, so let me just try to rub everything out. Okay, and now let me just make sure that I do not make any mistakes in the fitting the cooler in the correct orientation. Okay. Yeah. Okay, let me just move the cooler a bit around so that the paste is distributed evenly over the surfaces. Let me just check a little bit. Okay, it already starts to stick. Okay. Well, I need some small adjustments. As you can see, this is the way the paste has been smeared out. So I need to add a little bit paste over here. And then it should be okay. Okay. Make sure that this is the right direction, orientation. Okay. There we go again. Doing the same trick again. Okay, oh, that looks good. Now it's nicely and evenly, how do you call it, distributed. Okay. So now we can try to fit the big block. There are two screws on both sides, which should line up. And if they line up correctly, I can screw them. Now let me just first start with this side. Okay. Yeah, there it goes. And then the other side. Yeah, there it goes. Okay. Now it's just a matter of tightening up the screws. Okay. The next step is to put the motherboard into the case, fix it in the case. And this ASUS motherboard has an extension over here. And I think for reasons of safe transportation, they have bolted in a screw here to keep this extension into its place. Of course, to connect the motherboard, we will be needing 4 holes. So 1, 2, and this should be number 3 and number 4. So we have to get rid of these transportation safety bolts, I think. Okay, so let me try to get rid of them. Luckily, my cooler is not in the way, so I can remove this one quite easily. Okay, let me just flip it upside down and carefully get rid of these. Okay, that's 1, and that's 2. Okay. Okay, let me see if this one looks okay. Yes, it does. Okay. So I will be perhaps needing later on. I will be needing some longer screws, as this side is a bit thicker than the other side, as you can see. Before we insert the motherboard, that's this one, in the case, you first have to slide in, click in this back pane, I think it's called. Okay, let me just check if this is the correct position with the motherboards. Okay, yeah, that seems to be okay. Okay, so let me slide it in. And click it in. Yeah, that goes. Click. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so you can see that it's fit correctly. Let me just, yeah. Here you can see the small, yeah, how do you call it? The small things sticking out. And also on the other side. Okay, so the next step is to put the motherboard in the case. Okay, let me just put it in a way that you can look what I'm doing. Okay. Okay, now we have to be careful because you can see here 4 metal, I think copper space holders, and yeah, of course we should not scratch anything on the motherboard. So just as a precaution, as a safety measurement, what I'll do is I'll just put in a few napkins just to make sure that I don't scratch the motherboard. Okay, just make sure that they are over the metal placeholders. Okay, and let me try to slide the motherboard in. Okay. Okay, there it goes. Can you see it? Well, more or less. Okay, can you see it now? Yeah, it's a bit better. Okay, and that fits. Okay, so now we can carefully remove the napkin, I hope, and hope it will fit. Okay, let me just do this step without the camera, because I have to do it carefully, because I see there is quite some gap between the holes on the motherboard and the placeholder. So I might need to use some force and some conviction to convince the motherboard to slide in. Okay, so we'll continue later. Okay, so I have screwed in the motherboards, and it fits quite nicely. Let me try to show it to you. So you can see that it fits quite nicely in the case, and the connectors are very how do you call it? Very nicely fit through the plastic case. Okay. So the next task is to insert 2 fans. One fan which will blow air into the chassis, into the CPU cooler, yeah. And the other fan will blow the air, the hot air, outside, to the outside. Yeah. So what actually happens is that we get a nice flow, starting at these 2 blowers, okay, pushing the air here, then the CPU blower pushes the air inside the cooler, and then finally the chassis fan blows the air outside the case. Okay. But as I can see, we don't have much space on this side. I think we will have some conflict between the CPU fan and the chassis fan. Okay, this is the CPU fan. Yeah. It's the fan which of Noctua, which came with the cooler. Yeah. And that's the chassis fan, which I've screwed out earlier to make more space to screw in the motherboards. And this will blow the air outside. Okay. On these fans, you have small arrows which show you 2 things. I hope you can see it a little bit. Yeah. The first one shows you in which direction the fan spins, and the other one shows you the direction in which the air flows that way. Okay, so this one should blow air into the cooler, so it will come like this. Okay, let me just turn it a little bit so you see it. Okay, and that's the chassis fan. Also here we have some small errors. Yeah, okay, so it spins. Not sure if you are able to see it, but it spins in that direction and it blows the air out in that direction. So this one should go in like this. And you can see it's a quite tight fit. And we definitely must make sure that they don't touch. Otherwise we would have a not only ugly noise, but I also think some bad fan performance. Okay, there's another thing which we should take note of, namely that I have to connect these two fans to the motherboard. So there are two connectors on the motherboard, and they are at a difficult place. Let me just grab some light so you can see it a bit better. Okay, so these connectors are over there in a quite difficult spot. Okay, so I think with some patience, some trial and error, and some patience, or perhaps a lot of patience, I should be able to fit the connectors into the motherboard. Because I know it will be a difficult angle, what I've done is, let me try to show you, I've used some duct tape to make a, well, 70-80 degree angle in this connector, so I can, yeah, try to fit it a bit easier onto the motherboard. Okay, because it's a tight fit, I must make sure that I will have sufficient cable to play with. So I think this would be a better position for the CPU fan. So I will have quite some cable to mess around with, and later I can make it more tidy by binding the cable to the chassis. Okay, so this one should come like this, yeah. And the chassis fan. Okay, let me just turn it a little bit. Here, I think the best way to fit it in is in this direction. So the cable coming out from here. So again, if I fit it in, okay, I will have, oh, you can't see it, okay, I will have quite some cable, yeah, there it is, quite some cable to again go inside. Okay. So the first thing to install is the CPU fan. Yeah. Okay. Let me put it in a position that you can see it. Okay. And get some light on it. Okay. So the standard connector, bracket, connector, I don't know what it's called, to fit in the Noctua CPU fan is this thing. And what you do basically is you clamp this into the cooler, and then the blower clicks in. It clicks in like this. and it will push down the blower. So basically what you do is place the blower, the CPU fan, make sure, looking at the arrows, that my direction is correct. Okay, as you can see here, the arrows, it will blow the air down, so that's correct. Okay, so here's the bracket. Basically what you do is slide this in like this, and then with some patience try to click it in as I showed you. Okay, let me do this off camera, because it's it's a task which will again require some patience. And also I can already see that when I've connected this blower, yeah, I will have to place it to the back. So on the other side, I won't be able to use the standard bracket. So for that, I will have to find another solution. And I think what I will do is I will use plastic straps, yeah, like this one, to just fix it. How do you call it? Fix it to the cooler. Fix the CPU cooler to the big cooler, so that it becomes stable, so it doesn't move around. So it cannot move around. And as long as the temperature doesn't get too hot, not hotter than 100 degrees, and I think that won't happen, because then, if that would happen, then I think your processor would certainly be dead. So as long as the temperature doesn't go above 100 Celsius, I think it should hold the CPU cooler nicely into its place. Okay, so let me just connect the CPU cooler and then come back to you. I've fitted the fans, and just to make sure that they run freely, I connected the power supply to the motherboard and the power button also to the motherboard. And as you can see, the system is now up and running, at least in the BIOS mode, because I haven't connected a hard disk or any OS to it. And as you can see, everything seems to be quite okay. So you can see here the CPU fan running and the chassis fan running. Okay, and you can see, I hope, just put some more light on it. Okay, you can see that I've connected the CPU fan with a red plastic strap to the cooler. Okay, so this seems quite okay. And here you can see the power supply that just sits there and is connected to the motherboard. Okay, and here you can see the BIOS screen, and as you can see, the CPU fans are running quite, both fans, the CPU fan and the chassis fan, are running quite okay. And you can see that the CPU temperature and the motherboard temperature are okay. CPU at 24, the motherboard at 22 Celsius. Okay, and it seems to be quite stable, doesn't increase to 60 or 70 degrees. So I'm happy with the fans, and the next thing to do is to try to connect the power supply. No, not connect, to fit the power supply into the chassis. Normally, if you have a bigger case, the power supply sits on the back side, and the power plug and the on-off switch stick out of the outside. In this case, the designers of the Fractal design mini case have chosen for another solution. Of course, because they need to cramp in as much as possible in the available small space, in the small space available. So in the Fractal design case, the power supply sits in sideways. Yeah. So with the on-off switch and a power supply like that, and they have an extension cable which will connect the power supply to the power cord at the back of the case. Okay. Again, we have to make a choice in how we will slide in the power supply. We can do it in two different ways. You can see here a bunch of cables coming out of the power supply. Either we can do it like this, or we can do it like that. Yeah. Please note that we have to connect the power cords coming out of the power supply in these two connectors. Yeah. So it would not be very wise decision to have all the bunch of cables coming out of the power supply on this side. So we have to put them on that side. That means that that's a bad choice. That's a better choice. Okay. So we will just try to slowly slide in the power supply. Okay. Make sure that the other cables coming out of the case don't give us a hard time, and then it should slide in into its position. Well, with some pushing. Yeah, and there it goes. Okay, that's what we want to see. So here are the cables of the case. A bit crampy. Okay, and here are the cables of the power supply. And here you can see the big power connector that will go here in, and the other one saying CPU. No, that's not the correct one, that's the PCI. We need the CPU power supply. Let me just try to find it for you. Where is it? Yeah, there it is. So that's that one. And you can see on this side it says CPU. Yeah. And that one will go in there. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Let me just fit the power supply off camera, and then I'll come back to you. Actually, this is the last difficult task to do in this small case. The tasks remaining are not that difficult anymore. We need to connect the USB front connectors, some of these cables to the motherboard. We have to connect the fans on the front side to the power supply, and we have to insert a hard drive. And basically that's very simple in this case. You have this bracket. In this bracket you can connect the hard drives, either the regular 3.5 inch or the small SSDs. You can just bolt them in. There are some small holes here in which you can screw them in, and then simply slide it in and connect the cable to the SATA connectors, and basically you are ready. One important advice: as you can see, you don't have much space here, so make sure that you use that you don't use a modular power supply, because then you will definitely run into problems not having enough space on this side, as you will have on both sides the modular plugs sticking out 1-2 centimeters. In this case, this is a non-modular power supply, and you can see I'll be able to somehow manage to get all these cables within the area available in the case. Okay, so let me just screw in the power supply and then come back to you. I managed to connect the power supply. What I did is I just slide it in, and on the other side the power supply is, let me just hold the lights to it. Okay, the power supply is connected with 3 screws to a holder bracket. So you can see now I have a quite big mess of cables coming out of the power supply, and the 2 main connections are the 2 fat cables to the motherboard and to the CPU power supply. What I also did is I managed to connect the SSD drive, the Samsung, and I must say I really like the way hard drives and SSD drives are connected, can be inserted in this Fractal design Note 3 or 4 case. There are these brackets, yeah, and they either have slides to connect regular hard disk, or 4 holes that you can use to screw in to bolt a SSD drive. And once you have done that and connected the cables, let me just see. Okay, to connect the the SATA 6 cable and the power supply cable. The SATA 6 cable goes to the motherboard, and the power supply cable goes to the power supply. And once you've done that, it's very easy. Just slide it in like this. Well, I've still move the cables a little bit and then slide in completely, and then just bolt it in with 3 screws, 1, 2 and 3, and then the SSD drive has been mounted into the case. Okay, what I also did is connect this plug to the main board. This big cable runs to the front side of the case, and on the other side it connects to these USB 3, 2 USB 3 ports. Okay, I'm not sure if you're able to see that, but this USB 3, the USB 3 cable fits in here, and the last cable that need to be fitted was this one, and that's a cable that goes to the headphone jack and the microphone jack on the front side of the case. So basically that's it for the connections. So now I only need to tie it up a bit, and then I think the hardware part is finished. So here you can see the end results. As you can see, I have used straps. I have them all different colors to bind all these cables to the case on the bottom side and on the top side, and also make sure that the fan cables for the 2 small fans on the front side, that they are also tightened, nicely but also securely. Okay, and the other side looks like this. What I've done here is use this gap over here to run the cables from the one side to this side, then make a U-turn and insert them back again, and also using the space beneath here, to fix them a little bit. So on this side I have a very clean plane, and when the case is open I can easily access the on off switch. So basically that's it. Now I can install Linux on the system. I'm going to install CentOS 6.4, and this system should be ready, and I'm going to use it as a small web server on our intranet, and I will place it in our server rack. That's also one of the reasons why it really needed to be compact, needed to be small, because we don't have that much space left anymore in our server rack. So let me continue with installing CentOS 6.4 and then show you the boot sequence. Let me first show you some things in the BIOS that might be interesting. During the startup I pressed the delete button and got into the BIOS screen. Here you can see the temperatures, CPU reading at 26 degrees Celsius and the motherboard at 22 Celsius, which is excellent. Here you can see that the system contains the Intel Core i7 3370K CPU. The nominal speed of the CPU is 3.5 gigahertz. I have overclocked this motherboard already a little bit. Let me show you the advanced mode settings. Just have to wait for a small moment. Yes, there it is. And then in the AI tweaker, you can see that because of some overclocking, the actual CPU speed is 4.2 gigahertz, and the 1600 megahertz memory is running a bit faster on 1648, I think. Okay, let me just get out of the BIOS and show you the booting up of the CentOS 6.0, 6.4 OS. Okay, there it goes, I hope. Yeah, CentOS 6.40 booting up. In a small moment we should see the loader. Yep, there it is. And it's up and running. So now also my intranet or internet server is up and running. Let me just show you on my iPad. Okay. Here I'm using Webmin to show you the status. As you can see, the Apache web server is up and running, as well as mail server, FTP, and some other stuff. So basically I think everything is okay, and I'm up and running. Okay, that's it folks. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope it can help you building your own system. Bye.